Hey there. So I wanted to share this story. I'm out for a walk before the rain starts, and the story was on my mind. Two things. Your presence matters, and there's beauty in acknowledging people where they are. Earlier today, I was reading this story, a beautiful story. This woman was sharing about her relationship with her neighbor, who they crossed paths because one day she smelled burning food, came out of her apartment, knocked on his door, and he came to the door. It was an older gentleman with a cane. And he said, "Now I understand that water can burn." And from that day, she decided, I'm just going to prepare, an extra meal when she's preparing food. And I think the first meal that she made for him was chicken noodle soup. And so that started this back and forth between these two neighbors. She would make the food and knock on the door and leave it at the door. And he would eventually take it in. And eventually it went from just the knocks on the door to conversations about, asking, how he was doing. And little by little, these doorway chats would turn into him sharing little snapshots of his life. He shared that his wife had passed away several years earlier, and she really was a person that was a cook in the house. And he shared some of the special meals that she would prepare and how, there were certain days of the week where there were certain meals prepared. And so those are things that he would look forward to. And over time, he also shared how he had children and didn't have a chance to see them. They were busy leading busy lives. And so it was just him alone in this apartment. And so it became a daily thing, with her preparing a meal, and she would put it in Tupperware. And, when she would get the Tupperware back, sometimes there would be a note or there would be a message that he would share, this needs more salt, or, it was okay. And this beautiful back and forth would go on with the two of them. Eventually, over time, she also became accustomed to knowing that she was noticing some changes. It seemed that he was becoming forgetful, or there were some times where he would refer to her using his wife's name. And then eventually there was a day where she didn't hear his footsteps. She didn't have a return Tupperware at her door. She wasn't hearing his cane tapping on the floor as he was shuffling through the apartment. And she became really worried and concerned. So she called, emergency services. And they came, and unfortunately, he had passed away. Some time had passed, and there was a knock at her door. And she learned it was his daughter. And she was sharing the story about the father passing and how her meals really saved him in so many different ways. As he was getting older, the children thought, well, we are sending groceries and paying for groceries to be delivered to the house, but he wasn't cooking. And often he would say he didn't have an appetite, or when they would visit, they would find the food had, eventually become spoiled. I guess the lesson in this story, in so many different ways, is how one's presence makes a difference. Her connecting with this neighbor through a shared meal that she prepared was something that sustained him. In his periods of loneliness, he looked forward to those meals and those conversations. She filled a void in his life in so many different ways. And it makes me realize, too, that sometimes we may have days and moments where we feel that our presence doesn't make a difference. It does. Sometimes we may feel that we're not being acknowledged in ways that we anticipate or expect. We are. And so this is just a reminder, whatever time we have, in any way that we can, Acknowledge people where they are. That conversation, that meal, that phone call, that text message makes a huge difference in so many ways that we don't even understand. And also another reminder, if you have a chance, go outside.